All right. So hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on the topic of accessibility coaching. I'm your tour guide for this webinar. My name is Jayaprakash Rai, and I am the team lead for dev services here at Deque India. And you can reach out to me at my email ID, jayaprakash.rai@deque.com. The spelling of my email ID will be JAIPRAKASH.RAI@deque.com. All right, to start with, let me give the agenda of this webinar. So we'll start with what is accessibility coaching, and we will learn what's the problem statement currently our industry is having and why accessibility coaching is required. Then the next topic will be, we will learn what are the different teams an accessibility coach works with. Then we will discuss different phases of accessibility coaching. And after that, I will introduce how to write accessibility acceptance criteria. And that is very useful and important part of this webinar, where I will be giving more time and will explain with examples how we can write an effective accessibility acceptance criteria. And after that, we will come to the topic of importance of central accessibility team and what is the importance of it and why we need an effective central accessibility team to have an effective coaching program. And the next topic would be, what does it take to become an accessibility coach? What should be this skill set of an accessibility coach? And at the end, we will have Q&A. So a few housekeeping activities I would like to convey. I will be covering this entire topic in 40-45 minutes. And the last 10-15 minutes will be open for Q&A. So if you have any questions in between, please note it down and hold on your questions and bring all those questions at the last during Q&A session. All right. So here we go. So the first topic is, what is accessibility coaching? So before I go there, I first would like to know what is the problem statement. What was the problem currently in our industry, and to solve that, why we need accessibility coaching. So what are the problems I'm going to tell right now? Accessibility coaching is one of the way to solve those problems. Okay. So there are organizations which follows a different approaches, uses different services, and they use different tools to make their digital content accessible, right? But all these approaches and the services they are using and the tools they are using may not always be efficient or effective, right? For example, I have seen organizations using accessibility checklist during their development, and they have a separate checklist during for their testers. So using accessibility checklist during the development and testing, I have seen it often fails. Why? Because these accessibility checklists contain checkpoints that are not relevant to the scope of a specific story. And even those that are relevant, they are often too abstract. So in the user stories, we don't write well-defined acceptance criteria. And because of that, these accessibility checkpoints often fails, right? And perhaps more importantly, if I can more explain on that, even when you're using the checklist that way, team often discover issues with their designs or contents, right? So the development team, while following the accessibility checklist, they came in between their development, they found that there was something wrong with the designs. The design was not properly done from accessibility perspective, or the content is not proper on this page. So that causes the entire process to take several steps backwards, where while those issues are reviewed and then again some new fixes come from the design side. So this all back end of fourth step results in significant delays of your software delivery, right? Then some of the organizations comes up with a remediation process that they feel that okay, we have some accessibility issues on our websites, and let's go for source code remediation. So we will have a developer team in-house, or we will outsource this to an expert team, and they will remediate our our source code, and they will fix the accessibility issues. But again, that remediation alone is not a sustainable approach, because it's costly and also it's time consuming. And also on top of that, what happens if a particular website at one time it was remediated, but again new features were keep on getting added in future, and those features were not developed with accessibility in mind. So again, your digital content become inaccessible, right? So remediation alone is not a sustainable approach, right? And then I have seen there are products that claims to make your content accessible with a single line of code, right? You might have seen a lot of talks or a lot of uh, pitching by some of the accessibility overlays companies, which claims that they will make your content accessible with just a single line of code. But that simply do not work. Don't believe in these claims. Those things simply do not work in accessibility world. So these are some of the problems which our industry is facing. So to fix that and to have an sustainable accessibility process in your organization, uh, Deque comes up with a flagship program called accessibility coaching. Okay. So what we do here and what is the final goal of this accessibility coaching, which we are going to learn in the next half an hour. So the goal of the accessibility coaching would be to bring process in each of the phases of the software development life cycle, right? And another goal of this accessibility coaching would be to efficiently implement the shift left approach. Many of us in this accessibility world have might have listened to the word called shift left, right? Where we say, or where we advocates that let's bake in the accessibility concepts, or let's bake in accessibility right from the design phase itself, right? So this is called shift left approach, where aspects of accessibility are considered right from the design phase of the software development life cycle. So here, as a part of accessibility coaching, we try to implement that shift left approach in a best efficient way. And then at the ultimate game goal of the accessibility coaching would be to change the crew members' will, their skill, and their process, so that they can proactively deliver accessible products, right? So this was accessibility coaching and its goal. And the next topic would be what differentiates a coaching, right? So since we are into this domain for a longer years, we do have clients who come up with different works, like for consulting, for mentoring, for ILT trainings, right? So coaching is a combination of all those roles, right? So coaching is a combination of your consulting, your mentoring, your instructor like training, and the coaching itself is a coaching, right? So I can say that coaches work with the teams and individuals within the teams to help them find answers to their own questions, and then work together more effectively to achieve a common goal for the team. What consulting does: usually, a consultants work with the organizations to problem solve, provide services, or give specific feedback and recommendations. So consultants work for few on a need basis. They don't work full time with that client or with that organizations. Based on the need basis, they come in and solve the problems, right? Then we have mentors who work with the individual levels to build the mentees skills over time. Okay, that skills may be their develop accessibility development skill, their accessibility testing skills, how to use screen readers, what are the different automation tools they can use. So all those kinds of skills. So, and those discussions are usually driven by the mentee. And then we have teachings where the teachers or instructors work with a group of people to provide formal training, like a think like a classroom where when some teachers comes and give you the training. So coaching is a combination of all these four concepts, right? So one thing to note here is coach is embedded with the team. So whatever the team the coach is working with, the coach is embedded full time with the team. So it's not like the coach is only going to work on few days of the week or just few hours of the day. No, the coach is embedded with the team and is available full time with that team. So the team can have a one-on-one discussion with the coach anytime in the working hours. Okay. So now comes like, what are the different roles and different teams whom an accessibility coach works with? Okay. So there are different teams in any software development lifecycle. There are designers, there are content writers, there are product owners, there will be some Scrum Master, there will be people who write user stories. We call it as business analysts. There will be developers, there will be testers, right? So we have wide spectrum right from left to right. So accessibility coach has to work with all these roles, right? So accessibility coach has to bring in process related to all these roles, right? So let's start with that first role into the software development life cycle called designers, right? So designers are the one who creates accessible designs. They are responsible for accessible designs and reviews their own work and documents how their designs impact accessibility. So here, the core job is to review the designer's wireframe, give them the feedback that if the design doesn't meet from accessibility perspective, review them, provide the guidance and documents accessibility, how what it can be done from a design perspective, right? So one of the examples would be like coach can advise the designer to use annotations, right, for different links, buttons, what are the individual components, how they should behave, what should be tab sequence from one point to another, right? So all this can be annotated properly. So the idea is if you provide enough information right from the wireframe design itself, we create less room of ambiguity and we create less room for assumptions because we have annotated and we have provided most of the informations in the wireframe design itself. So when a developer will see that design and start developing the components, you don't have to think otherwise. There is everything clear from the design itself that what is expected of that particular widget or particular component, right? So an accessibility coach also advises the designer that uh, if any tool they can use for to address accessibility in the design phase itself. One of the tool, for example, can be X for Designers, which is a plugin for Figma. If your designers are creating designs with the help of Figma tool, they can very well go ahead and use that plugin X for Designers, where they can address some of the accessibility issues right from the design phase itself. And then the next role would be content writers. So the content writers are someone who creates and reviews contents for accessibility. Those guys writes page titles and the alternative text for the images. So whatever the content comes up right on your page, on your website. So accessibility coach also works with the content writer and give them the guidance that what should be your page titles, what should be your alternative text. So all those kind of guidance to the content writer. From WCAG perspective, we do have separate guidelines for writing page titles. So all these informations and guidance can be given to the content writer from the accessibility coach. And the next role into pipeline would be the product owner, right? So we have to make sure that product owners makes accessibility a priority for the team. And the product owner should ensure that all stories have clear accessibility requirements. So these are some of the guidance which the coach will give to the product owner, so that the product owner also gives accessibility a priority right from the planning phase, and make sure that all the stories which are being written in the Jira or whatever the tool, they all have clear accessibility requirements, so that properly those user story and story points can be estimated. And product owners should also look for evidence that accessibility requirements have been made before accepting stories. So what I mean to say here is, uh, there is a definition of ready and definition of done, right? So which every product owner thinks of whenever he accepts any uh, story, right? So accessibility must be included in the definition of ready and the definition of done, right? So this guidance should be given to the product owner. So any user story should not be picked, or any design should not be picked unless and until the design has been reviewed by the accessibility coach, or that design has been reviewed from accessibility perspective. Unless and until that design is not reviewed, we should not pick that design for development. So these are some of the concepts which should be clearly written in the definition of ready, and product owners should always look for that definition of ready before picking up any accessibility stories. And the next role will be Scrum Master. So accessibility coach also works with the Scrum Master, and he ensures that the Scrum Master is including accessibility in the retrospectives and documents it as a team norm. So whatever the team ceremony happens, whether it's a retrospective meeting or teams user a backlog refinement meeting or any such ceremonies, accessibility should be part of those consideration, and the Scrum Master should be uh, coached to pick up those accessibility items as well into those meetings. The next role would be business system analyst. So this role might not be with the same name in different organizations. In some organizations, we have business system analysts who write the user stories. In some of the organizations, the team leader itself writes the user stories. Also, I have seen in some of the team that Scrum Master itself writes the user stories, right? So whoever writes the user stories, okay, we need to, the accessibility coach that person that how to write user stories. And whenever they're writing user stories, they might already be writing user stories into their organization for a longer period of time. But what I have seen in many of the organizations, that while writing the user stories, the acceptance criteria for the functional thing is very well defined, that what the user interface will do and what is the acceptance criteria from functional perspective. But from accessibility perspective, they simply write one liner that this component should be WCAG compliant or ADA compliant. So this one liner, it's not going to work, right? It's because this is a very vague statement. So the idea here is the coach will train and teach the person who's writing user story how to write accessibility acceptance criteria in a more detailed fashion, right? So for that, we at Deque advocates accessibility behavior informed development, where we facilitate collaborative planning for accessibility and then documents requirements as accessibility acceptance criteria. So this topic I will take in more depth in coming slides. Okay. And the next role will be developer. So suppose in the previous step where we have written the user stories and we have written a very well defined accessibility acceptance criteria for all those user interface present in that user story, right? Now developer will read that accessibility acceptance criteria, and the developer has now a reference point that what he needs to develop, because there is a well defined functional acceptance criteria written into the user story. There is a well detailed defined accessibility acceptance criteria already written into the user story. Now the developer has got a reference point that what he needs to develop and what he need to test, right? So here the accessibility coach works with the developer. So to make sure that developer is developing the components based on the whatever is developing, that passing the acceptance criteria from accessibility perspective. Also here accessibility coach will guide the developer how to use different accessibility developing concepts. Like if he's not aware of ARIA, then we will guide, the coach will has to guide how to use ARIA concepts, how to develop, how to develop from the accessibility perspective. And if he will he will also be coached, he will also be trained on how to use any automation tools in their local development machine while they're creating any components, right? So developer also has to test their thing, whatever they're developing. So all those kinds of coaching will be given to developer as well. Now the next role into this process is tester or the QA person. So the QA person also will rate the accessibility acceptance criteria given into the user story. So they also have got a reference point, what exactly they need to test. And coach has to provide test coaching training to those QA guys how to test against a specific checkpoints, and what are the automation tools they can use. Apart from automations, what are the things they have to test manually, what are the screen readers they should look for, how to operate the screen readers. So all those kinds of training, mentoring, and coaching will be given to the tester. And then the next role will be, I could say, everyone or anyone in the organizations, or there may be a leadership role, or maybe your accessibility program office, your central accessibility team, right? So accessibility coach works with them as well. For example, if I give a particular example of accessibility program office, so coach work with that office or the central accessibility team of any organizations to make sure that over a period of time the organization develops a design system, a central design system which will be used across the organization, a central component library which is accessible, right? And then a library for accessibility acceptance criteria. So these are the 2-3 things which we should develop. A coach will help the central accessibility team to develop over a period of time, so that at an organization level you'll have a accessible component library, a central design system, and a library for accessibility acceptance criteria. Let me grab some water. All right. So now the next topic of this webinar is phases of accessibility coaching. What are the different phases of accessibility coaching? So phase one would be teaching, right? So this teaching phase creates the foundation of the team, which needs to succeed. So what does this team learn in this phase, right? So what happens is whenever an accessibility coach gets embedded into a team, so in the beginning, the team usually has limited knowledge or experience with accessibility. Some team might be well mature in accessibility. They might be knowing different automation tools. They might be aware of screen reader testing and all. So they might be mature. And some other team might be having a limited knowledge or limited experience with accessibility. So the first thing that the coach does is the coach joins the team. Coach participate in team meetings such as daily stand-ups, the backlog refinements, the working sessions, and the retrospective meetings. So the idea is the coach will discover the strength, the weakness of the team, and they will come to a point that this particular team with which he's going to work, what is their expertise level in terms of accessibility, and then the coach will come up with some strategy and prioritize the things that what are the training I need to provide them to get them going. So, and what are the tools which we need to bring in here to get the team going. So the initially it will be part of discovery sessions, right? And within, and team will work, and the coach will work with individually with each of the team members, and coach will get an idea of rough idea of where the team is from the accessibility skill set and the accessibility maturity level, right? So what does the team learn in this phase, in teaching phase? First thing is the will. As I said that accessibility coaching brings in a process into your software development life cycle, and any new process which comes into the system, uh, it doesn't come any smoothly because people don't like changes. That's the human nature, right? So the first thing will be the willingness to learn the things, the willingness to accept the new process, and willingness to accept the change, right? So the first thing the team will learn is their willpower, the will. The team learns why accessibility is important. The coach has to let the team know that why we are doing this, why accessibility is important, what we will get in the long term. So all these things, coach has to guide the team, and coach has to let the team know that how accessibility fits into their jobs, and the coach has to accordingly guide them that accessibility is not just one person or one team job. It's the responsibility of everybody, right? And it's a continuous process. It's not like a one-time activity. So for the team to be effective, there must be a collective desire for accountability, right? And then the team learns the process. So team will learn when and how accessibility fits into the development process. We recommend accessibility behavior informed development uh, as a part of this coaching program. And we will see how this accessibility behavior informed development is and what are the things we bring in as a part of this process. So one thing I would like to clear here, like this accessibility coaching program, and especially this accessibility behavior informed development, we assume that the team is working on agile model and they are following agile, and team is not working on a waterfall models, right? And if the team is working on a different agile methodology, so the coach can help provide direction based on their discovery session and based on what effectively fits to that particular team, right? So the process the team will learn, the process we call it as accessibility behavior informed development, which you will see in more depth in coming slides. And the third thing which team learn in this phase is the skills. So the coach will work with every role to gain the technical knowledge needed to create accessible products, right? Right from the designer, the coach will work with the designer also to let the designer know the technical knowledge, the accessibility concepts, the accessibility uh, features or the perspective they should think of or consider while doing a design. Similarly for developers, similarly for testers, right? So whatever the skills they need, the coach has to provide those skills in the form of either an instructor-led training or the formal training or any websites which suits them that they can learn from. So whatever best suits to the team, the coach will provide all those trainings and make sure the team get all the skills required, right? That skills may be using any automation tool of accessibility, or maybe using any particular screen reader. So all these are part of skills, and its coach will ensure that each role of the software development lifecycle gain the technical knowledge needed to develop an accessible products, right? So as I said, this may involve self-learning, instructor-led training, one-on-one teaching, and more. So there is a note here where the coach does not do the team works. Okay, this is very important line. The coach does not do the team's work, but guide the team to learn to do these tasks on their own. The coach job is to bring in process, the skill set, and motivates them for the willingness and guide the team to learn to do all the tasks on their own. But the coach does not do the team's work. And this coaching concept can be uh, applied to any other field, right from if you take the example of any uh, sports, right? Let's suppose cricket. So cricket also has our Indian cricket team has a lot of coaches, right? We have an head coach, Rahul Dravid. We have batting coach. We have bowling coach. We do have fielding coach. Then we have other coaching staffs like physio, trainer. We do have mental conditioning coach as well for the team, right? So what these coaches does, they do have a certain skill set because they have played the game. They come up with a skill set is required for coaching, and they bring in some process, right? That the coaches don't go on the ground and play the game. They don't play the game themselves. They bring in the process, and they 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 watch and they monitor the progress of the team, whether they are following the progress or not, they are following the process or not. Okay, and if any training is required to enhance their skill set, the coach will make sure those all the team members are trained on that particular skills, right? So the same concepts applies here also in accessibility coaching, where the coach does not do the team's work, but guide the team to learn to do this task on their own. Yeah, in initially few sprints, when the team is new of the process, the coach might have to do a heavy lifting initially in the first few sprints, but that's not the ideal way. The coach does not have to do any team's work. Now I will come to the our most important part, accessibility behavior informed development, which is a part of our process, which we brings into in the cycle, right? So anybody who is following agile methodology, they must be aware of behavior driven development, because that was a term which was coined into the industry at the same time when agile and their methodologies were being discussed, right? So the accessibility behavior informed development, we call it as LEBID, that extends the aspects of behavior driven development, and it helps to teams explicitly plan for accessibility. So what we do here is, with this accessibility behavior informed development, teams uses concrete examples such as designs and the conversations between cross-functional team members to discover and document how the system's user interface should behave from an accessibility perspective. So what we do here is we use a Gherkin format or Gherkin style scenarios, and we write the acceptance criteria to document those behaviors, right? So for example, you have some user interface which is being considered for writing user stories, and that user interface, you can see in the wireframe design that it has a group of checkboxes, right? Now, from that perspective, what all should be considered as accessibility acceptance criteria, right? So all those informations we write in a Gherkin style format and document those behaviors in the user story, right? So along with the functional acceptance criteria, we do write this accessibility acceptance criteria into the user stories, right? So this is example of Gherkin format or Gherkin style acceptance criteria. So this is a language which is used industry-wise to write acceptance criteria, right? So where we write in this format: scenario, given, when, and then. So this is the format of the Gherkin format, Gherkin style of writing acceptance criteria. So we'll see one of the example of how we write uh, acceptance criteria of accessibility, right, into this format. So let's take an example of a group of checkboxes, and your business analyst or your team lead who is writing the user story into Jira or whatever the tool you are using in your organization, right? And you come across that this is the user interface present on this particular design for which we are writing user story. It has a group of checkboxes. Now in the user story, already the functional acceptance criteria might have been added. Now the new thing which we are going to introduce here is, instead of writing a one-liner acceptance criteria for accessibility, that it should be a WCAG compliant or it should be ADA compliant, no, we are not going to follow that one-liner. We are going to introduce, or we are going to bring a more detailed acceptance criteria for accessibility, right? So take this example of a group of checkboxes. Now the group of checkboxes has to be operated from a mouse user, a keyboard user, and a screen reader user, right? From all this perspective that needs to be operated. So for the mouse user functionality that already might have covered in the functional acceptance criteria. Now, if I have to write accessibility acceptance criteria, what are the things I will consider? So let's consider the scenario A, right? Where I'm going to write the acceptance criteria for a screen reader user, right? So I will write like in the same format, Gherkin format, given, when, then, right? This is the format which I have to use. So the scenario is a blind screen reader. Screen reader user can understand a group of checkboxes. So how you can write it? Like, given I am a screen reader user and the page contains a group of checkboxes, when I navigate through the checkboxes with a group level text, then I hear a group level with any helper text. And I hear the visible level for each checkbox along with any helper text. And I hear the role of checkbox. And I hear the state announced as checked, unchecked, or mixed for each of the checkboxes. And the state that is announced for each checkbox matches the visual presentation. So look how I have clearly defined in a detailed way the acceptance criteria for a group of checkboxes, right? Similarly, for scenario B should be there for a sighted keyboard user for the same group of checkboxes, right? The scenario B says a sighted keyboard only user with a motor disability can operate a group of checkboxes. So given I am a sighted keyboard only user with a motor disability and the page contains a group of checkboxes with the group level text, when I navigate the page using the tab key and the focus lands on a checkbox in a checkbox group, then the checkboxes will receive focus in a logical order, and each checkbox will have a visual focus indicator, and I can press the space bar to check or uncheck a checkbox. So you can see here, I have covered both the scenarios from accessibility, and in detail, I have covered this acceptance criteria into my user story. So by using this format, what we are going to achieve is we are giving all the informations into the user story itself, which will be referenced by the developers while developing their components. This user story will be referenced by the testers when they are testing your components, right? So we have reduced the ambiguity, we have reduced any assumption here because everything we have uh, mentioned in detail, right? So this is the process for writing acceptance criteria for the accessibility things we have introduced, and we call it as a accessibility behavior informed development, right? So now we have done with the phase one, which was teaching, where we have provided all the skills and processes to the team members, right? And that thing will continue for few cycles or few months until the team gets some maturity. And the moment the team gets some maturity, then the phase two of coaching comes in. So here we assume that team has gone through some of the cycles, some of the sprints, some of the accessibility stories they have already developed. So everybody in the team, right from the designer to QA, has know the process, what the coach has brought in. Now the phase two is coaching, where instead of directly answering questions, the coach will guide the team to answer the questions themselves. The coach monitors the team and their work, stepping in with observations and feedback when required, and celebrating and reinforcing what the team is doing well. As the team members have matured, they're following the process, they're doing the things right way. Coach has to shout out, give them appreciation, celebrate, and reinforce what the team is doing well. And this is a very important part of this coaching role in this phase, right? And the third role will be advising. Once the team is largely self-sufficient and is seeking less day-to-day guidance, the coach can become more of an advisor. And the coach will still monitor the team's work, step in as needed. However, the team will likely want to adjust their accessibility approach to better fit their work, right? And as I said previously, that effective coaching requires uh, a strong central accessibility team, right? So for coaches to be effective, the organization needs a strong accessibility team and program. And that central accessibility team can help the coach by partnering with product managers, sponsors, leadership, the executive buy-ins, and the people managers to create awareness about accessibility into their organization and also unblock any issues, right? And that central accessibility team also help the coach by creating and maintaining policies to enforce accessibility. And the central accessibility team, as I said before, like they will be responsible to guide, I mean, to develop a central design systems which will be used across the organization. And they also have to build the component library of different components which are accessible. And then they also have to build a library for accessibility acceptance criteria. Like one of the acceptance criteria I discussed for a group of checkboxes. Similarly, there are hundreds of such scenarios like buttons, radio buttons, list boxes, combo boxes. There are hundreds of different widgets and components, right? So we should have a well-defined acceptance criteria library somewhere documented centrally, so that any team who is working on a new development, they should go and refer that component library and the acceptance criteria documented for that particular visit. Okay, so that everything is uniform across the organization and is documenting those acceptance criteria into their user stories, right? So the last question is, what does it take to become an accessibility coach? Who can be an accessibility coach? What are the skill set required for an accessibility coach? So the answer is there is no single path. However, an effective coach must be able to provide subject matter expertise to the teams they are embedded to, as the team will be learning the fundamentals of accessibility. So the coach must be having those subject matter expertise of accessibility, right? Collaborate effectively with other coaches and teams to resolve issues. Listen and communicate directly and effectively with every member of the teams they coach. Be compassionate, respectful, open, and humble. And these are some of the references which you can go and read about this accessibility coaching programs and the more processes in detail. So I'm opening the floor for any questions and answers. We'll still have 13 more minutes to answer any questions. So I can see some of the questions in chat. Let me go through it.
Ayush, can you enable Jyoti? I think she has a question. Can you enable? Sure, Abhin. Yes, Jyoti, you can. unmute and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Jyoti. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jyoti, we can hear you.
Yeah, my question was, can a visually impaired person become an accessibility coach? Because me, myself, being a person with low vision, I have been doing accessibility testing, but I wanted to know if I could become an accessibility coach. Thank you.
Great question. Jay, do you want to take it up?
Yes. Hello, Jyoti. Thanks for your question. And yes, the only challenge I would see here, someone who is visually challenged. So as the coach has to work with different roles of the software development life cycle. So except the design phase where an accessibility coach has to visually see and review the design, right? And then give the feedback to the designer that whether your design is good from accessibility perspective or not. So except that challenge, I can say that all other roles or all other uh, things can be very well taken care by a visually challenged person as well. So the only the design part may have some challenges unless and until uh, something evolves in the future where designs can also be fully automated and it can be fully tested from the accessibility perspective. Until that is done, so that phase is the design review phase is the only challenge. The rest of the phases that can be taken care.
Super.
Thank you very much.
Ayush, can you unmute Sudha Vasu? Yep. So I think got the question here. Yes, Sudha. I think we've got a question. I think it says, do you provide WCAG certification service for US companies? Yes, we do. I have posted the question. Sorry, I posted my email.
Right.
You can send me an email and we can discuss in detail, Sudha.
Right. So I'll give a one line additional context. So I
Yes.
work with a US company. So basically, with their, and I work as a product owner in their India center. So I've been leading the WCAG and the VPAT initiative for my product. And then we have done some kind of research ourselves with although there are no kind of accessibility experts within the company. So every is so and this company has around a dozen of SaaS products, most of them being legacy products. So it's a requirement for most of our products, but we don't have an expert committee or a department who's subject matter expert for accessibility and VPAT kind of domain. So but in spite of that, we have led some initiative internally. We have gone through some trainings. We have got hold of some scanner tools, collaborating with our design and UX department. And we have then kind of stopped midway because we realized that we need some kind of an external validation or certification from the industry that would actually help our go-to-market strategy and convince our customers that we have indeed qualified. So that's the juncture where we currently stand, and if this is something that you can help
Oh yeah,
from your end, then it would be.
absolutely. I just DM'd you my email ID. We can definitely set up a meeting and discuss the stuff, but we can absolutely take care of this whole thing. And we as a company, Deque, we are a 360-degree solution provider. So not only do we have the services part of it, where we can take care of audits and kind of navigating you through the whole process and helping you to generate a VPAT certification. We also have training models and products that can take care of your end-to-end development, testing, and designing cycles. So I think we will be in a good shape to take care of all your requirements.
Right. I'll drop you a mail from my company email, and then we can.
Perfect.
Thanks, and a very nice presentation. Really enjoyed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Who else has a question? Okay. Okay, we have a few more minutes to go.
Mansa, do we have any questions in chat box?
No, Jay, we're good.
We've already answered those, Jay.
Yeah.
All right.
Most of them are answered. Jyoti, do you still have a question because your hand is still up? In case not. Okay. Great. I think that's good. I don't see any other questions. So in case you do have any other questions, okay, 1 second. Yeah, it says usually share your recording to separate or group. Yeah, we will share the recording of the session with all the participants, as well as this recording should be available in our YouTube channel as well. So we will definitely make it available for everyone. And we will also post the same over LinkedIn for you to look at it. Great. Do we have? Okay, perfect. Great. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending the event today. We look forward to bringing more events like this over the next few months. And please feel free to give us your feedback, and it would really help if you can promote and share our pages as well. And also our YouTube. You can always subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Yeah, if you can just drop a feedback or a short note in the comment in terms of how you felt, it would really help our team to do better.